Hey there, welcome to episode 30 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo, coming at you on this June 20, 2024. It's a Thursday. Summer is upon us here in the greater Vegas area and probably where you are. If you're keeping track, tomorrow, the 21st, I just read somewhere that the summer solstice is coming early this year, so we may already be in it. Today may be the longest day of the year. I'm not sure. Could be tomorrow. I know for my mom, it was the longest day of the year many years ago on the 21st of June. So shout out to Mom and the substantial effort way back when. And yeah, it is my birthday. Anniversary of same. So speaking of that, today's topic, title of today's episode, attendance versus participation. Attendance versus participation. You can put those together any way you like. Hopefully wherever you find your audio programs, where you get your podcasts, as I say, you are able to see the description of today's episode. Today, as it happens, there are only the usual 2 shameless self-promotion links. I'm really hoping that you understand what attendance versus participation is. No additional linking required. I was thinking about linking to OKRs and KPIs, but I've talked about this on other episodes before. We're not really going to delve into it too much, although if someone wants to argue the points, we can in another later episode. All that said, and by the way, if by now you are not sure, or if you're just joining, if you just found this audio program, FFS is about what works, what doesn't, and what we can do about it. If you don't know what FFS stands for, you need to meet more Irish people. The show notes. Let us begin the summary of today's episode. Woody Allen, of all people, famously suggested that 80% of life is showing up. I don't have quotes around that because it's sort of a paraphrase. Sometimes it's 80% of success. Sometimes the wording is rearranged. Sometimes it's 90%. And I have found in my travels an interview of some sort with Woody Allen where he doesn't quite remember exactly what he said, but it's something like that. So close enough, within 20% perhaps. Words to that effect. Anyway, you really had to be there because even he doesn't remember. If we take that suggestion literally, we may end up where we are now. Perhaps we have. That is to say that showing up is all people are really concerned about, or 80% of. I think it's problematic. It's something that we can fix, but we have to be aware. The first step in solving any problem, of course, is admitting that we have one. On to the links. Again, my favorite 2 links, my shameless self-promotion, off the grid that I might have any control over. It is out of band, as I like to say. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Use the Buy Me a Coffee site as a sort of a freeform profile page to put links to my various audio program productions and some GitHub repos and some other things. I even have a list of some of my favorite, certainly the beans I get more often. I don't know if I've tasted enough of a variety of coffee beans and different preparations to have an authoritative favorite, but these are close of my population survey sample. So if you are curious, you're under no obligation, of course, in either on either platform to spend any money. However, any monies that I do collect through either of these will go towards coffee very explicitly. It's what powers the projects. Once I launch the websites, plural, for the various productions, maybe we'll bring back the Hugo Floss audio program and maybe more stuff coming after that. Who knows? I use these to make those announcements. Although they will need to work in conjunction with the websites if and when they ever see the light of day once again. So buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo and ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. On with the show. The first item in my notes says meetups, gatherings, presentations, oh my. So meetup culture is real, especially here in Vegas, in the greater Vegas area, and especially post-pandemic. I kind of imagine that people that live in Vegas, and I'm probably one of them at this point, are not up for heading downtown, heading to Summerlin, heading to the Strip. That's people who live here rarely go to the Strip on the regular. From my experience, that might have changed by now. Who knows? The fact is, sometimes it turns into a very mechanical process. Unless you're a content creator, then you spend your life in a circuit making TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, etc. But for the normal person, it's probably nice to get out and meet other normal people. And barring that, you sign up on meetup.com, Eventbrite, or any of various other platforms that have an event capability, and you try to figure out where people are hanging out. And you go and you socialize, you chit-chat, and maybe meet a new friend, maybe go home with a new friend, and you say hello, at least, somewhere, either at the beginning or the end. This is not what we're talking about today. Here in Vegas, there's a bit of a meetup culture centered on the notion that we are a startup haven, that we have a startup scene, that being entrepreneurial is cool, that you're missing out if you're not an entrepreneur, if you don't have your own startup and you can't go and talk about it at a coffee shop and take pictures of yourself working hard at your laptop. Wait, how do you have all that time to take all those pictures? There's all manner of startup and entrepreneurial opportunities here in Vegas. That's what they tell me anyway. Not to mention crypto, Web3, VR, now AI. These are all popular topics for meetups. Oh, robotics, meetups where you can go and hang out and chit chat and say hello and maybe meet a new friend, maybe go home with a new friend. Wait, that sounds very familiar. The difference would be that some of these meetups are business oriented. They are certainly, they include networking, but they are sold to you under the auspices of some sort of effort advancement, elevating your opportunities and so on. And sometimes they are to be capitalized upon by the organizers. I'm not trying to make this overly cynical, but it is something to be aware of, is that meetups in the entrepreneurial space are sometimes almost not quite MLM, but they are really all about, here's what I can show you or teach you if you come to my classes or so on. I'm also seeing an increase in the number of venues that are hosting meetups. So the organizer of they tend to be a little bit more social, but sometimes they're leaning into some of the startup trend. Hey, it's the startup scene in Vegas. Come on out to XYZ Coffee and grab a coffee from 9 to 11 or something. So the dividing line is a little bit blurred, but essentially there are the social gatherings. Just get out of the house, go meet people, go talk, common interests, etc. Those are fine. And then there are the what I like to call the check boxes. Like, am I in the startup community? Oh wait, I went to that meetup. I can check that box. Yes, I am in the startup scene. So the casual networking activities that are some meetups, even if they are in this entrepreneurial, I'm in the startup scene category, they're sometimes just, hey, meet fellow entrepreneurs and see what's going on. And they meet at a bar. Sometimes in a classroom or a workshop format, they'll meet in a more of a, well, maybe like a classroom or some sort of a venue, co-work space or a meeting room. I think the public libraries here have meeting rooms. You can do that. The downside of bars, by the way, is often you must be 21 and over. And as I like to say, you do not need to be this old or this young to be an entrepreneur or to be an innovator. So it's a mistake often to believe that innovation events must be 21 and older. And this is a problem Vegas will continue to suffer despite pointing it out at every turn. So it's unfortunate. But meetups can take many forms, all shapes and sizes. If it fits on meetup.com, which is a horrible website. It's in the mix. One of the challenges, absolutely here in Vegas, but in general, I believe, is the tools. The tools. How do we make meetups and gatherings useful, and how do we make them work? I bring this up all the time. It is a real problem. It's in various documents and discussions that are not by me or driven by me, that I've been a part of, or I've read, or listened to, or been in on, and these are from other people as well. So it's not just me, although I certainly agree. Discovery in Vegas is a challenge. Meetup is one tool people use a lot, though it is widely acknowledged to be subpar. Try searching for something that you know should be found. I know there's a meetup in this area within 10 miles of a selected point. Why am I not finding it in the meetup search? Great question. It will never be answered. And Meetup has recently, for example, started charging money. You must sign up for Meetup Plus to figure out who will be at an event. And that can be useful. It can be useful in assessing whether you want to take the time to attend an event if you've never been, or if you want to take the time to attend again if you already have. But that is something monetizable. Now, some people say, I just want to see who will be there so that I know whether it's worth going, as a simple, are there enough people of the gender in which I am interested? Are there enough luminaries that are well known? Are there a bunch of people who have never been to any meetups before that are maybe new to the area, then I don't know them? Could be anything. The more interesting thing, and this will sort of trickle through this entire episode today, the more interesting things would be to know who is returning. Like, how often does a particular individual attend a recurring event? And then what have they had to say about this recurring event? I suppose if they're coming back to it, that's one vote. But are they coming back to it because they feel they need to be in the scene? Are they coming back to it because they found real value? Are they coming back to it because they found new business opportunities or met a co-founder or something? So there are varying degrees of utility may be found at recurring events that will lead, or events that are organized by the same organizer or organizers. So it may not be the exact same event, but same sort of genre, same end goals, etc. So if you can figure out who's returning or attending more than once, are they bringing a friend? Are they referring other people? To be able to find their net promoter score. I sometimes call it the net refer score, but the net promoter score, just to have some idea, because as is often the case, if you attend a meetup, merely attend a meetup, it's still time, and time is not something we all have to throw around. Planning events sometimes includes a head count, especially if the venue expects an estimate if you need seating, if you need to pay for food, if maybe there's going to be a bar, maybe there's going to be beverages in general, beverage service of some sort. Maybe they got to figure out how big a room. Maybe they need to know when everybody, like if you have RSVPs for 50 people and 20 people are there, they may start wondering, is all of your party here for the meetup? Should we move you to a smaller room? There's all kinds of reasoning behind that, just from the venue standpoint, much less the participants and the organizer and so on. RSVPs are rarely taken seriously here in Vegas, but that's true in most places, unless you purchase a ticket. Tickets to normal meetups, like a ticket on meetup.com, is almost always a bad sign. Unless there's something really compelling, maybe a lot of familiar people have signed up to attend, and so there's a little bit of credibility lent to it. Or maybe it used to be a free event and now it's paid, or maybe there's an explicit pay scheme, like, okay, we're going to have our meetup at a coffee shop, so you pay $5 or $10 and that goes towards your first coffee. Okay, that would be an interesting way to engage and kind of involve the venue in the event itself. reason for them to reserve you a table or to, maybe promote the event to their regulars, right? Like, hey, every Thursday we have a Scrabble group that meets here if you want to be in on it. So that helps involve the venue, and it shows the venue that they're getting some value out of people taking up a table for a couple of hours, that they know that ahead of time. That's just an idea, throwing it out there. So RSVPs can be important, are often neglected, especially here in Vegas. I have organized many events here over the last several years. I don't know why RSVPs are even attempted. I usually don't require them. But again, if you have a ticket that you can purchase or you can spend actual money and indicate some level of commitment, especially if it's non-refundable, you'll be more likely to have people show up or at least pretend to. It's tricky, especially if you go across platforms, so you really have to point people to the ticketing platform. Like, yes, we're on Meetup, but you have to go to Eventbrite and get a ticket, or and there's a variety of schemes like this. I don't mean scheme in a negative way. I just mean it becomes a barrier to entry. So you'll often lose some potential attendees because that's a hassle. I got to go buy a ticket on a different website, and it can be limiting to attendance if it becomes, we'll say with air quotes, complicated. And then event feedback. So basically we have discovery. How do you find events? We have RSVPs and ticketing, and making that useful, sensible, painless, frictionless, if you like. And then event feedback is really hard to come by. It makes it difficult to align the organizer goals with the attendee goals, and those don't always align at all. We'll dive into that a bit more during this episode. But this extra work is often ignored, with one of the problems being inconsistency across platforms and a lack of any indication that such feedback is valued. Now, Meetup, for example, and I'm picking on Meetup because I've used it quite a bit as an organizer and as an attendee. I gave up on it a long time ago. I attended a meetup.com engineering meeting one time, a virtual meeting organized on Meetup. They wanted to brag about their efforts, and they've made some very weird decisions. And then they were sold. They were acquired sometime in early 2024, and that was the beginning of the end. That's where this Meetup Plus option came from, to pay to see who is attending, which is ridiculous. And it doesn't always work, by the way. Sometimes if you time it just right, you'll be able to see who's attending without paying. They've clearly implemented things in the front end, or they've done just an awful job of this implementation of the feature. But all that said, they do occasionally ask for, hey, did you attend? What did you think? And you give it a star rating. I've already done another episode on star ratings and reviews in general and whatnot. And star ratings are opaque. They have no units. They have no basis. So a star rating is purely, it's certainly not objective. It's certainly not subjective. It's just, it's a rating without basis. I may rate places on a 10-star scale. So what does a 5-star scale mean to me? Do I just map 2 stars to 1, or am I going to say, well, nothing gets 5 stars? There's a whole bunch of interpretation that is lost as it's mapped onto these 5-star rating schemes. I think they do have some other questions or polls of some sort, if people even fill them out. But it's not always clear that information is used. It's not always clear that information is visible. You may want to know that a meetup is highly attended. Now, to their credit, they do often show the number of people who are first-time attendees. So I recently saw an event, and these are tools that could be useful. And it sounds mean, but if you see an event, as I have in this one instance, the first event, 60 people sign up. 60-ish. Maybe a nice chunk of that 60 actually showed up. Maybe 40 people showed up. That would be a substantial turnout. You're lucky if you get half. I mean, that's insane. 10% for recurring events. You never know. You never really know really what's going to happen. So you see from photos or mentions or who knows, it's really difficult to get a solid indication. And this is really about, is this going to be worth going to? Okay, 60 people said they're going to show up. There's no indication how many did show up. That's a feature that Meetup doesn't really push on. Did you attend? Or the organizer can mark people as did not attend, and you can use that to determine some event stats. But then, hey, if nobody shows up, that makes your event look bad because attendance is the only thing that matters to some people. So all that said, 60 people, all 60, of course, are the first time going. So you see, okay, well, saw a couple pictures. It looks like it was pretty good. Pretty good on that measure. Quality of the event, not sure. Presentations, were they any good? Were they useful? Did I want to go again? Did I want to tell a friend? Okay. So the next event comes up. There's 72 people signed up. 72 people signed up to attend. This is before, so we don't know if they're really going to show up. RSVPs, not worth a lot. But here's the thing. Meetup tells you like 50 of those people are the first time. In other words, one of two things has happened. Either most of the people from the first meetup are not attending the second, or they didn't RSVP. That could be the case. Photos did not seem to suggest that there was 130 people there. I did not attend. I have not attended. It's a bit of a jog from where I am, and so that's one of my own personal considerations. This is not. This is nothing more than logistical. Like, do I want to venture down to the other side to the south side of the greater Vegas area? That only because I'm on the north side. It's quite a jog. I am a consumer of public transit by choice. And so the public transit system here in Vegas is a travesty. So much room for improvement, and it could happen, if only. So making the 2.5 hour journey, or if I really wanted to get a Lyft or an Uber and skip paying other bills during the month because it's no longer cost effective in Vegas to do that, sure. Do I want to attend? Well, let me see what they got on the table here. So 72 people, I think it was, and no idea how many people actually showed up. I didn't really get a good sense. I did ask someone who, of course, ghosted me because why bother answering a question? This is Vegas. So I'm not really sure. It's not looking good for me, though. Don't think I'm going to attend. The third event is coming up next week. And let me pause here. All right, we're back. So sorry for the break there. I did look up on Meetup the event that I'm thinking of, but I don't want to throw them under the bus. Not really here to advertise them either. Just for the sake of example, though, the third event, so it had really big numbers. In fact, there were comments posted somewhere. They were like, wow, great turnout, because attendance is what matters sometimes. 6 people have signed up to attend. So of those 6, 2 are attending for the first time. 2 are event organizers. So 2 people returning. Those are not good numbers. That's telling me, in the absence of anything really useful, that the network or the net promoter score is not high. So it'd be interesting to know. So attendance, though, attendance on events is very tricky. Let's talk about it. As Woody Allen suggested, and as I already mentioned, 80% of life is showing up. I use this expression frequently. I sometimes comically add, and it's also the other 20%, because the lack of RSVP validity, people will say they're going to go and they don't. So if you plan for the people that RSVP'd and they don't show up, that may have cost you money. It certainly costs you time and effort and so on. So it becomes an actual loss. It's a predictor of loss if you have RSVPs. If you know for a fact that people aren't showing up, then why bother with RSVPs? So showing up, yes, is 80%. However, if attendance is all you're thinking of, hey, I showed up. If that's all you're expecting, that might be fine. If you're looking for participation, that's the next section of my notes. It's a simplistic view of life, though. If we just show up, if we take the humorous interpretation that merely showing up is 80%, then, I don't have to do anything else. The 20%, meh. And it's, from what I understand, I have not been in school for many, many years, but the No Child Left Behind program puts 80 or 90% of final grades, I guess. Final evaluation is 80 or 90% testing and almost nothing on homework and actual participation, interacting in class and so on, interacting with other students, conversations and discussions and debates about topics, etc. So if this is true, and I've seen that to me, it's not a good thing, not a good outcome. So if all you have to do is essentially show up for tests, and that's 80 or 90% of your final grade, similarly, all you have to do is show up to a particular event. You can check the box. Hey, I was there. I'm in the scene. I'm in a part of the crew. I'm in the crowd. The startup scene here in Vegas are often very transactional and self-centered. For the attendees and probably the organizer, like we're here. I'm here for me to check that box and to see if I can find new clients. I'm here to talk about my startup idea. I'm here to get something out of this event. Maybe I'm here for the free food or to get into the pictures, make an announcement about me, try to sell something. They're fairly predictable. So more likely it's showing up and maximizing the personal benefit that's driving attendance. Not always. I'm taking the cynical road here. It's about what I want to do. It is. How did I spell that? W-A or W-O? There is nothing particularly unexpected or wrong about a solipsistic focus on meetup attendance. That's pretty normal. I mean, you're welcome to go. If you go to a movie and you pay your ticket price, even if you go to a meetup and you pay for a ticket to go to a meetup, I go to a movie because I'm looking to see the movie. I'm there for me. I'm not there for the other people in the theater. I'm not there other than the money going into the pot and being split. I think it's 50-50 with the theater and the movie production company, the distributor. So, that's fine. That's a totally normal model. I'm not necessarily denigrating that. Entrepreneurs don't always have time to give, but it is unsettling sometimes to observe how much hours here in the greater Vegas area take. So attendance, is there going to be free food? What's in it for me? What are you going to do for me if I show up to your event? Some people will show up to events as a show of support for the organizer of the event, which may or may not have any utility whatsoever. If 100 of my friends show up to an event, I would first ask, who are you people? But if you're only showing up to show support, there's really no value. You're not actually helping to elevate the event by default. You might end up by accident. You may show up and say, oh, we're talking about one of my favorite topics. And so you're able to contribute in some way. But the motivation for attendance and then the value of the actual attendance are not always totally clear. To the attendees, certainly. Sometimes the organizer doesn't even know. I've had this conversation. Like, how many people should come to your event? 500? No, that would be too many. Well, but you always want more people. There's no advertised maximum. And then when you actually dive into the details of what happens for each additional person that attends after, pick a number, after 100, 101, 110, 150, 200, as you go up that ladder, the value proposition begins to change. And that's something that organizers don't always think about. Unless you're booking a table for a certain number of people at a meetup and then twice as many show up, then you're like, oh, this is a problem. We'll have to make it work. But attendance is not super simple. It's not just a number, although it is often treated as the number. And I've been told by a data scientist, well, sometimes that's the only way to measure, like whether a thing is successful or not. And you get it here in Vegas as well. 40 million people visiting Vegas every year for a run rate measured over less than 1 year. It's a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but we're very concerned with crowd size here in Vegas. Size matters. CES, 180,000. When it was 140,000, it was noticeable. When it was 40,000, the first year after the pandemic virtual event, so I think this was 2022. Yeah, 2022, January 2022. Ooh, that was a ghost town. You could tell the difference between 180,000 and 40,000. That was pretty crazy. So attendance plays a role sometimes, but then attendance at an event like a CES or an NAB or a SEMA or construction shows. There's all these huge shows that are in huge venues. So having them feel full is a thing, but there are other measurements you can take about the quality of the event and whether you should go back and so on. But attendance is kind of a gross round number. People can use it easily. The units are easy. I mentioned earlier, if you get 5 stars, 4 stars to an event, you are giving stars for a different reason. There's no units. It's like me saying, I'm giving 5 stars for food. The units are deliciousness. And someone else says, I'm giving 5 stars for the quality of the venue because it's in comfort. Those don't go together. So total number of people is an easy measurement. People treat it as an opaque indicator of whether an event was good or not, and they move on from there. Unfortunately, without any real metrics, so other than attendance, there's really no way to assess the value of a meetup. Those in attendance or those seeing the unavoidable social media evidence where likes and shares get the attention. So it's a numbers game. How many people liked or then attendance and a great turnout are all attractive, right? You want to see pictures with full rooms, lots of people mingling, maybe drinks in their hand, maybe having a snack, lots of people watching the speaker at a whiteboard or at a presentation display, doing a slideshow. You want to see those numbers. You want to see the numbers of attendance. You want to see the number of social media posts, the number of likes, the amount of engagement, because these are the sorts of measurements you can make. These are the sorts of measurements you can share with people that are meaningful without detail. So you cannot assess the meetup value. You can have a room full of people. Like I said, 60 people that signed up for the very first event of this event I was referring to. 72 the following month. This month, it's 6. So we'll see what the meetup number is next week when the event actually takes place. So the question then is there more to the story than merely attendance and showing up? I would argue there is. Sometimes. In many cases, that's something else. The more of a thing that you'd like to see in an event, whether you, we'll get into that. Participation on all sides, organizers, attendees. Sometimes it's encouraged. Sometimes it's required. This is easier when an event is paid. So you're paying to show up and you are expected to bring something or be prepared to get up and speak, be prepared to take part in an activity, especially if this particular version of the event is geared towards getting you to come to the next event where you pay more money sometimes, sign up for a class or something. So, so encouraging participation during an event like this gets you involved, makes you feel like there's some value to continuing this. I enjoyed that. I got a little dopamine hit from answering the question correctly or being called on or being recognized or working in a little group and shining in some way. So there are various ways to turn participation into some other outcomes. But in general, episodic meetings, those are meetups that are just standalone. You don't really have to go to the previous one or go to the next one. They're all self-contained, encapsulated. They can be a challenge because getting participation in there, people don't always know what to expect. They don't know what they're getting themselves into if it's they're one and done, right? And by the way, I should say, some meetups are designed that way. And one of the meetups that I hosted for 2 years was like this. You show up once, you participate to the extent that you would like to, and then there's really no expectation that you come again. If the meeting is effective, you might not have to. The nature of that. So there's possibly a meetup series that you might attend. Like, hey, we're having 6 meetups once a month for the next 6 months. You should attend all of them. There will be sort of a connected or an arc that goes across all of the events where you're learning something, you're working on something. This could be something as tangible as arts and crafts or painting or something like this, or it could be bring your business plan and we go over it. We go over some of the numbers. I've participated in an agile workshop type thing where there's some expectation that the content from the previous meetup will be included in current meetup, you might be able to get away with, which I did, jumping in on one and then attending the next one, and you can see that connection. But if you're not in for the series, your participation may be disjoint to those who have been participating the whole time. It's an interesting dynamic. It is not completely a snap. It's not a snap of the fingers or a simple matter to orchestrate participation from your attendees, who are sometimes just showing up to attend. They're not there to do work, put in effort. It's a fact. It's something to be understood going into it. But if there is a learning arc, it's often easier to get people to participate. Or if you state it up front, which I will get to the first event I'll mention of my own, which I did for just over a year. I think it was was it 18 months, 17 months? I did it for quite a while. Right up front, the meeting was all about the people in attendance. So they would all be expected to participate in some way. And you just state that up front. Here's what's going on. Here's what's going to happen. And if you chose to just be a spectator, that's okay too. So it's pretty loose. It worked out better than I would have expected, although there was always someone who did not get it. And that was always frustrating, but that's okay. Participation raises the bar on the measurement of outcomes. It isn't always about homework between meetups. So I'll give my own examples of this. The one example of an episodic participation scheme that we had to go along with our, well, anyway, I'll get to that. I use the word scheme a lot. It sounds like it's something shady. It's not. Scheme as in an orchestration or a plan or an infrastructure, an agenda. That's all. But if there are some actual tangible outcomes through an activity, if you're doing something, or if you're having the attendees, people that are there at the event or the gathering, do something, bring something, as I mentioned, bring your business plan or whatever. These can be a more valuable engagement if people know what to expect. And again, this will be apparent when I talk about the pitch workout room. When people come to engage, when they have that expectation previously, and this obviously helps if they came to the previous event and they know what to expect. Now, my events, I mentioned the chained events earlier. These were not chained in any way, so they were completely episodic, all standalone. However, you would be familiar with how the event was supposed to work if you attended a previous event. So okay, now I know what to expect. In this case, and I will get to the specifics here when I talk about that pitch workout room, but in this case, participants will draw more people who want to participate over time. So you'll probably have fewer people over time merely showing up because they may feel like, well, I'm just sitting here watching other people have fun or learn something, and I don't want to, or I can't. So they sort of fade away. The people that are getting value out of it may use that net promoter score. They may find it interesting and valuable, and they want to continue participating. They'll tell their friends, and they'll invite their friends to join them, and so on. And this is where it's important, if that's the goal of the organizer, it's important to understand what is happening there rather than just saying, I guess more people came. If you want to have the same people return to continue the participation process through some sort of a learning arc or a participation arc of some sort, it might be useful to know why people might not want to return. Like, why are you returning? Why do you not want to return? If you're here again, tell me why. What was it about last month's or last week's or whatever event or gathering that made you want to continue and return? You may get some insight from there, including what did you, attendant/participant, what did you get from this? What was the value that you derived in exchange for your time and effort to be at this meetup or gathering? The bar is a little bit different, I think, for virtual meetups. If you just have to flip a camera on or don't even do that, and you can participate sitting or standing at your desk or computer or laptop or from a coffee shop or wherever, the barrier to entry, the ask, the travel to a location and receive the content of the event and the engagements and so on. That's a different value proposition. So that might be an interesting exercise. I think it's always important to know why people are showing up. I know it's 80% if you ask Woody Allen, but why? Why are you coming to this event? What will keep you coming to this event? What will make you want to tell your friends? Merely filling in a net promoter score. Yes, 8, 9, 10. How likely are you to tell your friends or to suggest that your friends attend or whatever variation you want to create? Tell me why. Why are you likely? Is it fun? Is it interesting? Is it educational? The food is good? And this gets back to that star rating. If you have really great food, or if you have really great free food, and people show up for the food, and then they hang around because like, well, I'm already here. Is that the same as people showing up regardless of whether there's any food and having so much of a positive experience and so much value derived from their time spent, they don't even need food? And then, and there's free food? That's crazy. So depending on your objectives, and we'll get to that in the next section, depending on your objectives as an organizer, you may want to know that people are there for some sort of a purpose or are looking for some particular outcome, some sort of return on investment of their time and effort. If they traveled to get to your event, then that should be worth something. There should be some reason they want to travel there again and tell a friend. And if you don't know what that is, you will have no idea why attendance goes up or down. And then that gets tricky sometimes. So let's go to KPIs versus OKRs. So we had this discussion in my Cafe Genius Meetup Collaboratory about 2 years ago now. Not much of it caught on with individual people. I don't think people bought it. I did. But if you really think about it, and if you do account for the differences in perception and expectation, you may arrive at something similar or maybe something completely different. It's hard to say. But if you think about these things, it may be useful if you organize events and you're interested in something more than just a number of people there. And even then, that could be useful. So OKRs are objectives and key results. They're intended to be aspirational. They're not always easily objectively measured. So head count may be a key result. Yes, you could get a real number from that, but maybe you're aiming for 10% more month over month or something, and so it's not a hard number. It's not necessarily horrible if you come close, or if you're 20% or 2%. But if you're looking for what is essentially a recidivism rate plus a net promoter outcome, right? Like the same group of people is generally returning because they find value, and they're bringing a friend, or they're suggesting that someone else comes. So you're seeing a similar return rate, people coming back, and then some new people. And even more interesting is if those new people come back, bring a friend, etc. You have to understand what the meaning of a growing attendance number is. Are you going to be able to offer the same value or have your event for a reasonable cost or cost to your sponsors? Are you going to require tickets if you're going to provide free food for, if your attendance doubles? That's something to be aware of and be considerate of, especially if people are donating resources, etc. So it's important to understand, and especially if doubling your attendance was not one of your OKRs, like what's going on here? Does that end up subtracting from, or is it detrimental to my actual objectives and key results? Some of your objectives might be for those who attend and for the organizers or presenters or otherwise to have a reason. Why am I here? And to understand that reason and to fulfill, like one of my objectives might be, when you come to this meeting, you're coming here for this, this, and this, and you're going to, at the end of it, have achieved, two of those at least, whether it's a learning experience, whether it's an interactive experience, whether it's a tangible, I made something or I designed something, or if it's a networking event, my objective is that you come here and you meet 3 really interesting people, or 2, right? But my objective is that you meet some small number of people. Small numbers encourage more detailed engagements, more intimate conversations, if you will. You can take intimate however you like. So the objectives of the organizer are important here. They may not be always clear. They may not always be clear on the part of the attendees. The attendees might not even have a clear objective. So, but when you organize an event, when you are committing resources, when you're planning, when you're reserving venues, when you're perhaps getting sponsors or just paying for food, making arrangements based on dubious RSVPs, it's important to recognize why you're doing this, what you're looking to achieve. That way, if you're way off the mark, maybe you don't want to continue this event. Maybe it doesn't make sense and there's a shutdown cost, perhaps. Like, oh, I got to cancel all the people that committed to coming to next month because it's just not worth it. But you should know, is it worth it? And having some OKRs, you may have some KPIs too. We'll get to that in a second. But having some OKRs, objectives and key results. Here's why I'm doing this, and here's what I'm looking for as outcomes in aspirational terms. I'm hoping people will meet 3 useful potential clients or co-founders. Maybe you're putting on a co-founder speed dating event, which is an event that we actually talked about during the collaboratory. Like I'm a non-technical person. I need a technical co-founder. There are people that arrange these gatherings. Obviously, you want to know if they work. Then you can tell other people, or the people that attend can tell their friends, hey, I met my co-founder at this event. It's actually possible. What is important there, this gets tricky. If you have a certain number of people attend meet your co-founder speed dating event, if you only have a success rate of like 5%, it's important that the other 95% of people don't say that was a failure. It was only a failure for them that time. The notion that it worked for 5% might be outlandish. Like, who knew you could meet your co-founder? You actually click, you get the idea, you're able to describe the idea, tell the story in that setting, and it actually goes somewhere. There's some success to be found. So that's an actual success story that could apply to the next event. So it's important to set expectations there. And in that case, the next item, key performance indicators. They tend to be more cut and dried and usually apply more easily to the attendees. An attendee will basically say when they go, now I already gave an example for me. It's really far away. If the attendance is going to be really thin, or if there's just going to be a bunch of what I call tire kickers, you know what that expression is, right? They're there to see who else is there. They're there to check off a box. Okay, I was at a startup event. I must be in the startup scene. That is not a 2-hour journey in each direction to me. That is maybe next time. So my KPIs in general are was it worth the time to attend, including travel time? And would I tell my friends or colleagues to attend next time? And would I attend next time? So would I return, and would I bring a friend? Those are very cut and dried KPIs. Those are easy to measure. Now, in the case of the speed dating co-founder event suggestion, the notion, the fictitious scenario, my KPI might be, I'm hoping to meet a potential co-founder, but if I don't, I've still met interesting people, right? So the KPIs that I just mentioned might still hold, even though I didn't get a specific co-founder found outcome. So here it's important to set those OKRs, set those objectives and key results up front in the way you promote your event, the way you share it with people, the way, hey, you might meet your co-founder. You might meet them this month. You might meet them next month. You might meet them sometime later in the year, but you're not going to meet them sitting on your couch, right? Something like that. So the KPIs, though, the organizer may have KPIs, a hard number on attendance. Maybe you want to see 5% month over month growth in attendance. Maybe you want to see, maybe you're selling products. Maybe you're selling courseware, I guess. Maybe you're selling larger format events where this is sort of a teaser or a sample. Maybe you are working on a project and you want people to show up so that they will participate. That'll be my second example. And that's the next section, my meetups in Vegas. So KPIs can apply to the organizer side as well. So if you there's the people that are putting on the event. So the organizers, maybe the venue, maybe there's a product or a vendor sponsor or something, but there's the business side, and then there's the attendee side. Will they get more value for participating? Will they recognize the value of attending, et cetera, et cetera? So these are KPIs, but the OKRs will usually tend to be more focused on the organizer side. It would be an interesting exercise to ask people if they've considered their objectives and key results, or if they're really just reading the description of the event. It looks interesting. It looks like it might be up my alley. It looks like it's a way to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, which is meet more people, find a co-founder, whatever it is. You go to the event and you decide, yes, this worked for me, or no, it did not. It's really, I think, more cut and dried on that side. Attending an event is literally attending, showing up. It's 80%, if that's true. I don't think it really is. But if showing up is going to bring a particular attendee closer to making that KPI assessment, then not showing up, that is to say, they don't know what they didn't miss, or that they missed if they didn't go. So they go, they say, yeah, I would come here again. That's pretty easy. Organizing an event, getting a venue, getting guest speakers, all the minutia of organizing an effective event where you have actual OKRs, objectives and key results, as an organizer, as a host, as a facilitator, however you want to title yourself. That's a lot more work. So your expectations, A, cannot be quite as precise every time. So key results may be a little bit softer. But B, you can also put KPIs in there looking for something explicit, but more generally, more often, you are never quite sure what you're going to get, especially early on. And you should always be aware of when your event is successful with these OKRs. You may be thinking, oh, I didn't have 10 more people than last month. But if one of your OKRs is the best people show up, one of my key results might be that really talented, engaged, 1% people that are doers, that are leaders, those are the kinds of people you want to have show up. So if you only have 3 people show up, but it's the right 3 people, then your KPI, like I need 10 more people each month, maybe not appropriate. Maybe having the right number of the people that are going to bring more to the table for next time, if they want to come next time, is the important thing. So knowing why you're having a meetup and what you expect from it as an organizer is not always something that people spend a proactive sort of thought cycle on. They just, I'll just have a meetup and see what happens. Hopefully people will show up. And I always say, and you can use this, if the right one person shows up, maybe that's the meetup success story. One person showed up, but it was exactly the right person. It could happen. I had to take a water break there. My voice is putting up a fight. So my meetups in Vegas, my pitch workout room, which began in January of 2022. Is that right? Yes. In January of 2022 at Tech Alley at 9 a.m. So the third Saturday of every month at 9 a.m., a 1-hour pre-show. That is, there was already a full schedule. So, okay, we'll do it at 9. 100% participatory. The room was full on the first outing, which was impressive. That's the nature of Tech Alley. People go to check the box. So sometimes there's a valuable meetup. There are valuable meetups everywhere all the time. Not 100% of the time. Not every meetup is completely valuable. So my pitch workout room, 100% participatory. So anyone in the room was one of 3 roles. And since I did all 3 also, I'm in there. So everyone was either, or anyone present was either presenting their pitch in whatever state it might be in. So if you've never given your pitch before, you just have an idea, you can get up and say it. So very much like a joke workout room, an open mic, whether you're practicing music you've never played before, telling a joke you've never told before, etc. So here you're giving your idea. You may have a slide deck. You may have a general idea, but no slide deck. You may not have an idea. You just have, you have literally an idea and nothing else. You have no justification. You don't know market sizes and potential returns. You just have this idea. And so the second group was in the audience. They would listen. You had 5 minutes, by the way, because we had 1 hour. It was basically you give a 5-minute pitch, you get 5 minutes of feedback. So I call it the tight five, just like the comedy term. Your best 5-minute version of what you want to say, if possible. I would always say leave out the money. You don't have to talk about your terms. You don't want to talk about your revenue and funding needs, all that. So I would always say there's nobody with a checkbook in this room. So spend 5 minutes on your idea and maybe your implementation plans and so on. If you get the meeting with someone with a checkbook, then you can throw in the money slides. But mostly it was talk about what you want to do, not how much you want to make. Although I was told by someone who attended one time that he only needs to see 3 slides. What are you doing? What do you need from me? And how much am I going to get for what I put in? So a little bit more cynical. Anyway, the second group would give the feedback. So you listen for 5 minutes, and then you got 5 minutes more to suggest, to point out, to even criticize. The one rule was don't be mean. So criticize constructively was the goal. And then the third group was just spectators. Certainly you could just go and watch, especially if you were thinking, maybe I should do this next month. So you show up and you see how the lay of the land and you say, oh, I can do this. Okay, so that was fine. That worked perfectly. So 3 groups, up to 6 presenters, whoever wants to give constructive criticism and useful feedback. And then ironically, at the end of the event, because the proper tech alley started at 10 a.m., we'd cut it off by 10. And then you feel free to go to the actual event, the hosting event. We're not here to prevent you from participating in that. What it would end up happening is little clusters would form around the presenters to continue the conversation. So they were mingling, they were giving their elevator pitches, they were answering questions and so on. This became yet another variation on the pitch workout room, which I called pitch mingle, because people rarely get an opportunity to practice that. So 100% participatory. My OKRs were participation. So I wasn't really so concerned about attendance. Having more than 2 people was good. I wasn't looking for more than 6 presenters. So if you said, oh, I got 100 people to show up at your event, doesn't matter. We can only have 6 presenters. Everyone else in the audience will actually have less time to give feedback, and the person presenting will have less time to interact with this audience if there are so many people attempting to participate or offer feedback. The way it does work is if they spend time during the day afterwards. So attendance being high as audience, as spectators, was fine. But expectation that there would be more time or more people presenting, which would give them less time and so on. So it got complicated. So my OKRs were not increasing participation or attendance, I should say, but having good participation where people felt like they were getting something out of it. And then more importantly, one of the key results was that people left knowing more than they did when they arrived, knowing more about the story they wanted to tell, knowing more how their presentation could be made better, knowing how to move their slides around or how to be less wordy. Don't have so many slides on that, so many words on that slide. And I have to say, this idea came from a few different inspirations, among them doing open mic. Like it's a good way to do something, is to get up and do it. But I don't have a slide deck. That's okay. Do you have an idea? That's a good starting point. I would see slide decks where slides were prepared as though they were written documents, like 100-page term papers with full pages of text on each slide, and that's just not going to fly. At the very least, if people are reading your slides, they're not listening to you. So you really want to have some bullet items. You want to have some illustrations, some charts, but you don't want to have people looking at the slide and not listening to you. So they should illustrate the point you're trying to make, the story you're trying to tell. They should not distract. They should not become reading material. If you're going to have slides like that, those should be after. Those should be sent to people interested. Hey, can you send me your deck? I will send you the detailed engagement deck, the deck that we could go over sitting at a table during a meeting, for example, that has a lot more words and a lot more numbers and details and so on. So these are the sorts of, the key results would be that people came away learning these things, or they felt better about the way they were using that 5 minutes. By the way, sometimes here in Vegas, there are pitch events, and they'll say, okay, you have 7.5 minutes or you have 10 minutes, and people go for 25 minutes. Like, you don't always get that much leeway. You should be able to give your presentation in the allotted time. So the key results were that people were having an opportunity to get that idea moving, get some sunlight on it, get some feedback, practice speaking in front of people. And ideally, the one of the key results, which was not, it was not on the list of like expectation even, but it was a key result, an aspirational key result. So not a KPI by any means, but hey, it would be cool if people could take what they learn here and continue on to deploying a product or a service, or improving a startup, or launching a new product in their existing startup, or whatever it was. And that actually was happening. So from that perspective, the OKR, there was no KPI. It wasn't like we must have 30% funding as a result. No, none of those things. It was purely, are people getting something out of this? And even the attendees, spectators, again, sometimes they would get up and do a pitch. Maybe the second time they would come out of their shell and offer some feedback or a critique. But everybody that was there was ending up getting something of value. How to listen to a pitch, what to listen for, some ideas for their own pitch, how to present, like what order should I put my slides in, how do I tell a story without slides, et cetera, et cetera. So the KPIs were generally being met for the people attending. People would come back often to see who else was presenting. So yeah, that was a generally successful event until it started. Well, we don't have an infinite supply of people with ideas that want to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning and tell them. And it's too early would always get this response from me. You may not be ready. As an entrepreneur, you are being presented an opportunity at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is not an unreasonable hour by any means, to take a step along this path, make another step on the journey. And when I spoke to actual comedians about it, they said, that's amazing. Anytime there's an opportunity to get up in front of people and try your material, you take it. Doesn't matter what time or where. If you can get there, you get there. So this was a sticky point for some, but it's okay. So I think I ran it for 18 months, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it was January to June. So is that 17 months? June 2023. My second one that I'll mention is the monthly hackathon meetup and the rally at Tech Alley. Too much Tech Alley in my event history here in Vegas. Tech Alley has its own problems that I have kind of alluded to here about attendance, participation, check boxes, and so on. So the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we incorporated actually 2 years ago on Sunday, on the 16th of June. So yay, 2 years. 2 years of Innovate for Vegas Foundation and a few more years of Dan Hugo this week. Anniversaries. So when we formed this, we wanted to get the word out so people understood the goals. We can talk about projects. We can talk about hackathons and what that meant and so on. So we started our monthly hackathon meetup at the Innovation Center downtown. Thank you, Don Jacobson, as always, for being as supportive as he has been. And the idea was you come to the hackathon and we have projects that we're establishing. We had the open transit project to start, and we're going to work on them. We'll identify problems. We'll design a path. Later, this will become agile for volunteers. Like, the spec is not done for you. You should be a part of it. You are part of the project from beginning to end. It's part of a job skills learning process. It's about being a part of something, not being told what to do, especially if you're a volunteer. You are a part of the thing. You are not being made a part of the thing, if that makes sense. We used to have the finale at Tech Alley, which was going to be after the hackathon. So the hackathon would take place on the second Saturday of each month, and the finale at Tech Alley would be the third Saturday of each month, talking about how the hackathon went. Here's what we accomplished. Here's where we are. Here's a demo or whatever, right? That never worked out. So then we switched it to the rally at Tech Alley, and we would have the rally on the third Saturday, and the hackathon moved to the fourth Saturday. So the rally at Tech Alley would be a combination of here's what we worked on last month, here's what we're presenting, here's what the projects are, here's how to participate, here, just a general sort of briefing on what we were about and to get people excited about things. So we would have about 30 people, full room for the rally at Tech Alley. Everybody's, ooh, this is interesting, this is very exciting. Hackathon participation the following Saturday, nearly zero. And certainly recidivism rate at the hackathons was zero. So people were interested in attending and hearing, like, oh, yes, tell me what you're working on, but had zero interest in participating. Like, oh, you should work on that. I am not going to. So here, my OKRs, they were so unmet that it just didn't make sense to continue. Canceled the rally at Tech Alley, and then later canceled all the monthly hackathon notion. This was an in-person event. Is there free food? Well, if only 2 people show up, it doesn't make sense to get free food. Well, damn, why don't you pay out of your own pocket for this? Did someone really ask that question? As a public charity, we could certainly accept donations. We could have sponsors, all kinds of good things. But without attendance, we don't get those things. And without those things, we apparently don't get attendance. So feedback loop crushed. So the OKRs were completely missed, much less KPIs. And here OKRs are for any project. You have an actual ongoing project. So it was not episodic. It was definitely an arc, GitHub projects. Wait, is everything code? No. So you could participate in any of a variety of ways. Writing the spec. You don't need to be technical. You just need to know that there's a problem to be solved. Do you ride the bus? Yeah. Is it perfect? No, not even close. Okay, so if you were going to change some things, what would you change? Like, that's the level of participation. Do you like making icons or visualizations or audio content, or are you good at testing things? You want to tell other people about our projects? You want to be a storyteller or marketing, program management? Right, the list goes on. So not everything was code, but participation was essentially zero. Attendance was fine. Participation was zero. So claiming to have a good turnout is not always a win. In fact, it started to become a loss, because when you have people showing up and not doing anything, you now have to either cancel or you have to maintain the illusion that eventually there will be somebody participating. So we'll just keep having zero productivity gatherings. That doesn't work. So not much point. So now, by the way, our Innovate for Vegas Foundation is 100% virtual until the nature of our innovation culture changes. So we can reach out to other civic volunteer individuals and organizations. So we've shifted our OKRs, and we've added a new project to help with engagement. So connection, communication, and collaboration. So if we can make that happen, we don't have to be sitting in a room full of people that don't want to do anything. So there you go. So this is an example of taking a meetup that was not working, identifying potentially some of the problems that were leading to zero ROI, in fact, a negative ROI when you think about it, and then taking what we learned and applying it in a new direction to try to achieve similar results, but in a different way. Finally, so I'm only going to do 3, I was hosting the Bootstrappers Breakfast for 2 years here in the greater Vegas area. It was an event founded in Silicon Valley by 3 people, I think. And you can look that up yourself, Bootstrappers Breakfast. And 2+ years ago now, I said, hey, I would like to start a chapter of your they had chapters in different parts of the country, one in Poland. It was an interesting idea. There was an in-person component and a virtual component if you wanted to. So you could do all virtual. Bootstrappers Breakfast, you come and you go around a table. Everybody should talk. Everybody should interact and meet. If you're working on your startup or your entrepreneurial venture, you will invariably have a gap to jump over, and maybe you don't know the right person, you don't have the right method, you don't have the right resource, information available, et cetera, et cetera. So you go and you meet people that are in a similar sort of mindset and say, hey, here's a thing. And then someone else might say, oh, I know a person who can address that thing. There you go. The tricky part is that you don't have to go every time. So going to the Bootstrappers Breakfast was not a monthly kvetch session, if you like that word, complaining about things. It was not a session to go and keep pitching your idea. It was not a session to go and try to find clients. It was not a session to go and vent or to look for co-founders, etc. Now, not explicitly. You might say, does anyone know where to go find co-founders? And someone else might say, oh, have you heard about this speed dating event for finding co-founders? It's got like a 5% success rate based on attendance and participation. So 5% of those in attendance who participated successfully identified a co-founder and found some success. And then, of course, 5 years later, they either get rich or they didn't even continue after the second week. So some of those results are a little bit iffy, but you take what you can. So that would be a case where you're not necessarily going to find your co-founder sitting at the table. In fact, I can tell you probably shouldn't do that. But you can find more information that will help you. Hey, I'm looking for clients. Oh, have you seen this meetup? It's literally, don't come here and do anything except transactional engagements to find more clients at meetup.com. Oh, so completely solipsistic, all about me? Yes. Perfect. So Bootstrappers Breakfast was not that either. It was intended to be a sort of a brainstorming session. You introduce what you're working on, you go around the table, say, here's something I need, or here's something I'm trying to accomplish, and then someone else might have a way of shortening that path. There you go. And then you might give back. And ideally, you are building up a network of connections of people with that similar mindset. So the actual Bootstrappers Breakfast meetup, 90 minutes, 30 minutes of cool down and exchange business cards and whatnot. And then you might, continue conversations and so on. When you have a table of a maximum of 12 people, ideally round, but those are hard to find unless you go to a dim sum restaurant, you're going to talk to all of the people. You're going to have engagement with all the people. You're going to exchange contact information. You may have longer conversations afterwards. When you go to an event with 200 people, you still might have a meaningful conversation with maybe 12 people, if you're lucky. More likely you'll be interrupted and we got to go get the free food now. We got to go to another pointless meetup where someone's going to try to sell me something. What is it? What's that? Cardano? Is that what it is? Gamification versus gamified, or game theory. That was a hilarious. Anyway, so you don't necessarily get that quality time for actual conversation. Not saying you don't, you just may not. Interruptions were my big thing. So you're in a conversation, someone else wants to talk to one of you. So, I hate to interrupt. Well, you did. So you're sitting at this table, you have direct engagement with 11 other people about something you're trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, here in Vegas, what I would end up with is real estate agents or people looking for clients, or, hey, does anybody here need insurance, or things like this. So it just basically devolved into, half of the people that RSVP'd wouldn't show up, and then the people that did show up didn't get it. So wait, what am I supposed to do here? Are you working on a startup idea? Well, I'm thinking about it. Okay. Do you want to share any of that here? Well, I don't really want to say anything. Okay. So there was kind of a general mismatch, kind of like the pitch workout room. How come it's at 9 o'clock in the morning? This is an opportunity. If you are entrepreneurial, if you're innovative, if you are proactive, you will take this opportunity and run with it. Instead, it was often someone's going to have to tell me what to do. I need someone to tell me what to do. So those meetups so I bailed on the Bootstrappers Breakfast. 2 years was more than enough. The monthly hackathon meetups have been converted. We don't look locally for local innovators anymore. We're going to where the innovators are virtually, rather than hoping to get people to participate here. And then we'll see what happens over time. Maybe they'll peek over the fence and say, oh, I'm missing out. And the pitch workout room, someone else took that over. The pitch workout room is not a invention. It's not intellectual property. It is literally an open mic, and those have been done before. So that's ongoing with someone else driving at a later time slot. So maybe getting the lazy people in there. Sorry, I have my judge robe on right now. So what next? The purpose of this program is to figure out what we do about the things that are not working while recognizing the things that are. So based on my research and my own organizing and attendance of different types of meetups, that means I've done both sides. I think we all have at some point. There's a real need to take OKRs, objectives and key results, and KPIs, key performance indicators, into account when designing the meetup agenda or a syllabus if you have a multiple meetup sort of classroom, education, training scheme in mind. Those can also be done episodically if you're creative. When attending, possibly participating, and evaluating value and outcomes of these events. So we don't, as a matter of sort of default, we just show up, we just go. Maybe we go with some expectations, and we'll assess them at the end. Like, was this worth my time? Organizers of an event will often hope they get lots of people to attend. They may hope that people have a nice time. They may hope that people interact and meet. I've talked to event organizers who put a tremendous amount of time and energy, and those people are really, whether they would say they are or not, they are identifying their OKRs and they're behaving accordingly. There are other people who just say, we got a lot more people this month than last month. We need more food. So that's the measurement for what it's worth, right? It's worth exactly that. So recognizing those and accounting for them on both sides. When you go to a event and it's a disappointment, you can follow the pitch workout room rule. Don't be mean, but you could say, this event would be better if, and make a helpful suggestion to the organizers. Organizers will typically, well, I can't say typically. I've run into both extremes, like, oh, that would be awesome, we can do that, all the way down to maybe you shouldn't come here. And I have to be honest, if one person shows up one time and has a suggestion like, you guys should have more free food, the answer might be, maybe you shouldn't come here. I totally understand that, and I've used that one. So it really depends on the nature of the suggestion and whether you've taken the time to be there more than once, whether your offerings will be taken with good cheer by organizers. What we need is excellent tools, which provide meetup discovery, planning, and content and agenda, either individually or over an arc. That means you should be able to find the meetup that you want to go to or the meetup series that you want to go to, and be able to provide that constructive criticism in a useful way, possibly so that others in attendance or considering attending have visibility. So you should be able to know that a meetup is improving, it's getting better, or it's getting worse. If the organizer's objective is to just have butts in chairs, they might figure, I got to change the game up or else nobody's going to show up anymore because everybody knows. If everybody knows beforehand, they may not show up. If they don't know until they get there, you get your butts in seats, and the people that came there said, that was not worth my time. That may be one strategy. It's not sustainable, but that is one way to go. Another way to go would be to listen to the people attending and curate your events into the future based on that feedback. So provide that feedback and make that feedback, maybe anonymously, visible to people who are considering attending. Like, oh, look, this event had a small turnout, but the people that went there are tending to go again. So by the third month, you have all of the people who went to the second one. All the people that went to the first one and half the people that went to the second one, because they just saw that there's a third one and they may or may not show up. At the first group, maybe they didn't go to the second group, but they said, oh, look, they've tackled all the problem. So anyway, you can actually involve your attendees so that your OKRs align with their KPIs. I know it's crazy. We talked about all this during our collaboratory. It's in a Discord somewhere, and in my head, of course. A net promoter score might come in handy depending on the nature of the gathering. Net promoter score doesn't always tell you what you want to know. It only tells you if other people will tell their friends what you want them to tell them. No, there's some of it is about how you couch it. How likely are you to tell a friend? How likely are you to bring a friend? How likely are you to tell a colleague? Right? Are you aiming at just anyone? Are you aiming at a work colleague if it's a work-related topic, etc.? So you can you can tune that to your liking, and you can take the results not as the gospel truth, but as indicators, right? So the Net Promoter Score sometimes is treated as the Holy Grail, and like, you got to have that Net Promoter Score. It's the easy one to get, not always precise, but it can be reasonably accurate, but it may not be precise. Finally, clarity for all about attendance versus participation. If you expect, like my pitch workout room, if I said, yeah, show up, and I had a room full of people waiting for me to do something, I would have said, well, first of all, I did present first at my first meetup. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes. Then you're going to tell me what I did good, what I did bad. You're going to tell me to use proper English when I'm describing this. So I went first. Another person I knew who knew what we were trying to accomplish went second. And then there was okay. So it was easy enough to bootstrap that. And then the following month, we had another room full of people, and they all had heard, like, oh, okay, I get it. So that was pretty easy. If you don't set those expectations, though, you may have people looking at you, and you're looking back at them, and you're like, well, this was supposed to be about you presenting your idea, and then we're going to critique it. And they're like, oh, I thought you were going to present an idea, and I was going to critique it. Yeah. So what does it mean to participate? What are the expectations? Do you have to participate? Are you expected or just enabled? There may be a perception that attendance is participation. This is what we ran into with our rally at Tech Alley. People would attend the rally at Tech Alley, and then they would not show up any other time. They were very excited. Oh, this is really great. This is very interesting. Well, but you didn't show up to the actual working part. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So truth be told, people think that. They think that showing up is all they have to do. This is where you get the checkbox notion. So people don't always know that they're supposed to do something. So that's the truth. The truth is, people sometimes sometimes believe that they are only there to watch, to listen. They're not necessarily allowed to participate, and you have to make it clear up front, like, hey, this isn't going to be about how you can take part, or you are going to expect it to take part. Not required. That's a tricky ask, to require people. If you go to a basic life-saving class and you take CPR and you learn the Heimlich maneuver, but you choose to not participate, you will have a very different outcome from that class experience. You will have learned a different thing that's probably telling. And then later when you encounter someone choking, you'll be like, does someone else know Heimlich maneuver? Because I'm going to watch you do it. So that's the best example I can contrive at this very moment. But in general, if people are attending a meetup or a gathering or a class or a presentation of some sort where participation is expected to offer the full value, and they decide they don't want to, that is something to be aware of. They may end up telling their friends, they want you to stick your fingers down people's throats and blow in their mouth and break their xaphoid process maybe. And oh, that's not appealing. But that's not what it was about. It was about life-saving, not putting you out, inconveniencing you. So yeah, there's very often a mismatch about all these things. And so again, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but people figure, I showed up, I got my free food, I'm going to check the box, I'm in the scene, I'm part of the crowd. I told some people about what I'm working on. I heard from some people and I don't remember because who cares, because it's all about me. That can be the case, and that's unfortunate, but it's something to contend with. So transparency, information availability, feedback loops, and understanding what the value proposition is on all sides. And then, of course, the OKRs and the KPIs. Being transparent about the OKRs is probably helpful. You should identify them. There you go. So if you're clear about that, then the people attending will understand what you are trying to accomplish, or they might have an idea, or they can even ask. So I think it's helpful to communicate, and that's rarely a bad ingredient. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. I'll remind you of the 2 links that I have in the link section. They are both shameless self-promotion about me, or my projects anyway. You are under no obligation to spend money, but buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo and Ko-fi.com That's ko-fi.com/danhugo, are my shameless self-promotion tools that link to my various projects. I even have a list of my favorite coffee beans that I buy from Amazon anyway. All of my projects are powered by coffee, so keep that in mind. In the meantime, I hope you have better meetups. I hope you organize better meetups that are more valuable and are not merely concerned with turnout. There are times when turnout is the only usable and valuable number that's the only one you have to worry about. Did people show up? Sometimes not. And it's important to know that there are other ways to measure the existing event success, the today or the present, the most recent. And then what do you want to do? Production by road. What do you want to do into the future? Do you want to have more people? Do you want to have more positive outcomes with fewer people? Do you want to have more long-lasting impacts, like how many people showed up and then eventually started a real business? Maybe that's not based on attendance. Maybe that's based on effectiveness of the program, of the interactions, the engagements, and the ongoing communication. So depending on what you want to get out of it, what are your OKRs? Why are you hosting a meetup? Just because? Because why not? Maybe this is not for you. But if you are looking to elevate a community, if you're looking to support your local startup scene, start by starting your local startup scene here in Vegas, because the one we have is not great. That was an editorial. Be clear to yourself why you're doing these, and also be clear why you're attending a meetup. And if you're just going there for the free food, that's what you're going to get. Take it easy. Thanks.